The topic of this episode is how much more beneficial small steps are compared to big steps. Welcome back! Welcome to the CarCast. Welcome back. I love this for my mental health because sometimes I just have these thoughts these thoughts that go wild in my head and they have to have an outlet. Today I have my Dutch Bros. Last time I shared that I'm not a coffee fan unless it's white coffee from Dutch Bros. Guess what I have? A chai tea with white coffee from Dutch Bros. I feel like there's going to be a lot of details in this episode. Episode number 2. How cute. Episode. Holy. It's freezing. The topic of this episode is how much more beneficial small steps are compared to big steps. I've had this epiphany about this idea over many things. So I'm going to share some of those because I feel like this metaphor or analogy can be used in every way possible. Like you hear the phrase, it's a marathon, not a sprint, which also correlates to smaller steps are more useful instead of large steps. Large steps is basically like trying to take shortcuts to get there faster when it doesn't really work out. Maybe you've seen pictures on Instagram that display this as a visual. It'll have like a little stick figure guy and another stick figure guy. There's ladders next to them. And the one stick figure guy, his ladder has like little reachable steps up the ladder. And the other stick figure guy has a ladder and the next step is like totally out of reach. But he's trying to take those big steps, which are out of reach and unattainable. So that's the idea, and I just wanted to share some examples of how this can play into other aspects of your life. Maybe it'll help somebody out. When I had this realization, I was like, wow, like it makes so much sense. Obviously with fitness, if you're like at a point in your life and you're like, hey, like I want to lose weight, I want to gain muscle, I want to look better, I want to be healthier, I want to get stronger, and you train for 5 hours a day for 7 days a week, you're gonna burn out. You're probably gonna stop eventually, and if you don't stop, your body's probably gonna make you stop, whether it's an injury or soreness or whether you like gain some sickness because your body is expending so much energy it can't fight off any sickness. This is just a game of the long run. You gotta think like down the road, not like next month, but like down the road next year or next 5 years. I've been training very consistently and my body is sore and it is it's like, whoa buddy, slow down. If you haven't gone to the gym and then you just like jump into it, put in all your effort all at one time, you're probably going to stop that progress just as fast as you gained it. And you also hear this with people that do insane diets and like restrict so many things. They get to where they want to be in a very short amount of time. Once they go back to what they were doing, they gain everything that they had back, and if not more. In the long run, it has no progress. You also have to know yourself when you're doing this. You have to know where you're at in life, where you're at with training, where you're at with any situation in your life. So with training, if you have never gone to the gym and you just like don't work out and you are just like super motivated out of nowhere and you're like, you know what, like I want to be fit, I want to be healthy, I want to be strong, you can start with twice a week. If that's what you know you will do, and do that. That start is better than nothing. I talk to a lot of people that want to get fit so fast. I've like gone out with people and they're like drinking and eating and they're like, oh my gosh, you're so strong. Like I want to be strong. I'm going to start going to the gym every day. And I'm like, hey, like if you, like realistically, if you want to get better, like start with 2 days a week. 2 or 3 days a week. If you're currently doing nothing, 2 to 3 days a week is better than that. You don't have to jump in full force because that'll probably backfire eventually. The same with nutrition. You know, nutrition and fitness kind of go hand in hand. They say abs are made in the kitchen. Having good gut health, having a good relationship with food, it all plays a part. In my experience and my opinion, the nutrition side of health and fitness has been much more difficult than the fitness aspect. At this point, like the fitness aspect has always kind of been there for me. I've always been pretty active, like doing acrobatics. I've always been strong, so I'm pretty good at that and like pushing myself and doing that side of it. But the nutrition aspect, especially with like diet culture and how many words are thrown around, like keto, vegan, healthy, good and bad foods. It's like, it's really hard to have a good relationship with food, and if you don't, it's hard to build that if you haven't like grown up with that. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on mine and like having a good relationship with food. The word diet also has an interesting idea around it. When somebody thinks of the word diet, I feel like they think about restriction. You can only eat this, this, and this, or, you know, I can only eat these foods. Diet really is just like your diet, like what you eat. So it should be custom to you. What you eat is going to be different from what other people eat, and what somebody else eats is also may affect your body differently. It's so custom for each person. Your dietary needs are going to be different from somebody else's. So when there's like diets going, oh, like this worked for me, you can try them out. I would recommend experimenting and trying stuff out, see what your body responds to. Then you can kind of gain that body awareness and be aware of what your body does like and what your body doesn't like without throwing certain foods under the good and bad category. I think there's obvious things like artificial sugar. I wouldn't even consider it bad though, because they're so good, you know. If that's something you love, I think there's a lot of joy and like community that goes with food. Like when I was growing up, I would always bake cakes with my mom. I would always bake with my stepmom. A big part of me growing up was like baking and connection with my mother and my stepmother. So like I'm not gonna be like, oh, carbs are bad and sugar's bad, so I'm not gonna eat this. I don't do that for myself. Now, I don't eat those things all the time because I know that that's not what my body needs. It may be what I want from time to time, but that's not what my body needs. Just prioritize what your body is needing. If you're trying to get fit, I would definitely prioritize protein. Protein will make you feel satisfied. Carbs give you a form of energy, as well as fiber. Fiber makes you feel full. So if you have those three things in your diet, you should feel satisfied, energized, and full. You shouldn't feel like you're hungry again. That doesn't mean you have to cut out everything else. If you have a donut and you have like chicken and rice, eat the chicken and rice first. And if you're still hungry, then like have some of the donut. It's like, just don't go for the unessential food item first. Eat something that will be beneficial and nutritious for your body before you choose to enjoy something else. Have your priorities set on the nutrients, the nutrient dense foods. Like the whole thing about carbs, I don't think carbs are bad. I think carbs can be essential because it's an energy source, but I do think you can make little swaps. Like, oh, instead of eating noodles and chicken, I'm just gonna have rice and chicken because rice is a single ingredient. And something that helped me a lot was just like trying to eat as many whole foods as possible. So I have a enormous sweet tooth. I love sweets, I love candy, I love pastries and donuts and muffins and cookies. I love all of that. I love it all. Just, I don't eat it all the time. I don't always indulge. And I like to choose options that are one ingredient. So rice is one ingredient. Chicken is one ingredient. When I'm craving sweets, I like to keep fruit on hand because that is nature's candy and there's natural sugars in fruit. When I'm craving sweets, usually if I eat fruit, I don't really have that craving anymore. Like it satisfies that craving. Yeah, just putting my focus on not necessarily cutting anything out, but prioritizing more nutrient dense foods before I choose less nutrient dense foods. Also looking at the labels, it's very surprising actually, like when you look through ingredient lists of anything, like there's so much stuff in food nowadays, it really doesn't make sense. Along with what you're eating, and this is different for everybody. This can be different for everybody. I've noticed for me, some people will go throughout their day and eat like 2 large meals a day. For me, if I have just like 5 smaller portions things throughout the day, or even 4, just like smaller portions more consistently versus like eating so much and then going all day and then eating so much. And some days that does happen. Most of the time I try to be consistently throughout the day. I feel like that just helps me stay at a good level. Sometimes when I eat too much, I get like tired. I get like full tired. Food coma. Sends me into a food coma sometimes if I eat too much. So long from nutrition, I've also thought about this, small steps and big steps, like little increments versus big increments in clothes that I buy, which is so weird. Just stay with me. Hate to admit it, but I have done a Shein haul a few times. I hate it, but like, just basically have a new wardrobe. But we're working on it. There was a time in my life when I would do like a Shein haul and then I'd have just like a whole new wardrobe. Eventually, when I wear all those clothes, I'm like, oh, I have nothing new. Now, I'm also not a big store shopper. I basically live in gym clothes and big shirts. I have a friend who, every time she goes shopping, she'll get like one or two things, and I always see her in something new. And I'm like, dude, how do you have so many clothes? Because you're always wearing something new versus getting a whole wardrobe, and then once you've gone through it, it's like, oh, nothing new. Everything is old now. It's definitely something I noticed. A little bit of clothes at a time. It's not like everything's new, everything's old, everything's new. Such an uneven dynamic. Oh, another example that I had thought about was with money. I used to be an exotic dancer, so I would get quick money, usually in larger amounts, which was awesome for the time being. I've heard the phrase where people say, you'll spend the money just as fast as you make it. So that was something I learned throughout my life. Money plays a part in that also. When you work hard for your money, and just the consistency, it's not just like crazy all over the place. Getting like a large amount at one time, it's so much easier to spend it. It's so much easier to just like not care for it versus the small amounts that you earn over time. It all plays back to consistency. Whatever you can be consistent with is gonna get you the furthest in the long run. So yeah, those were some of my thoughts about choosing smaller steps over wanting to take big steps. From my experience, it always works better when you choose the small, consistent route. The big steps are just draining and they will burn you out. They will not get you very far. If you guys have any other like examples of how this has played out in your life, I'd love to hear about them. Maybe this like changed somebody's perspective, like it changed mine when I thought about this. Can't wait to see you guys next week. One day I will have a studio where I can do these videos, but for now, it's me and Cammie, the silver streak. She's doing well. Thanks for joining me in my car. Hope you have a beautiful, amazing, lovely day, and stay blessed.